have dimmable lights, presumably. Right now they're just on off with a breaker switch.
Yes.
So I gave you some basics to like grow plants. During the hours of 6 a.m. for 16 hours, because I didn't see any neighbors that will get pissed off about plants. They'll come on if the sunlight is less than 200 and go off if it's more than 500. It's a bright sunny day, no grow lights. Cloudy day, grow lights. From 6 a.m. for 16 hours. Max on, they go to 100%, and ramp 1 hour means go to 100% over the first hour in the morning, and then in the evening, ramp down for an hour, just like the sun does it. Okay. You have a ton of options. If you want to just turn them on, no sunlight meter, you turn that off. If you want them on from sunrise to sunset, you can do that. You can say, yep, I want somewhere near sunrise and go off 2 hours after sunset. I mean, like, you could play with this any way you want. Grow lights, you're not really going to break anything. You're just going to maybe make plants super happy or not happy enough, but you're not going to really break anything. These are great. I'm glad you have one. And you can always look back at old articles, and they can give you a really good idea what to do. Morning introduction, I don't think you'll use with your lights, but night interruption, only if you're trying to trick like poinsettias or something on a bench.
I don't see how I'm going to be able to work poinsettias.
Yeah.
Either.
I'm like,
exterior lights that.
so you'd have to do PVC over the bench, right? So you build a PVC cage, and every day before you leave, you pull the black curtain, and every morning somebody would take it off. Or you'd spend like $10,000 with me and motorize a bench, which you're not going to do either. So you can now, I think, buy poinsettias that will turn by Christmas. I believe they've done that genetically, but I think they worked on it. Yeah, but otherwise, that's kind of what night interruption would be worked for. Yeah, or tricking mums to flower, tricking things to flower for an FFA program, you know, like that stuff. Your bulbs. So you can do night interruption. You could plug them into an outlet and do it, kind of thing. So. Overrides, turn them on. You could also turn them off if it gets too hot in there. You could say, hey, if the greenhouse gets over 95, turn my lights off or turn them down. You could also just say, I want them on right now to 50% for the next 5 minutes. Again, kind of like those fans, hit start and save. And I'll be damned, they came on to 55% or 5 volts. When he wires them, you could do that. You could go grow lights, override, come on halfway, put the switch in auto, and they better come on. And then turn them off. Switch works great, but program's always nice too. Anything under override is a way to test things in automatic. Okay? And if you get the pickle, you call the office. Now, we're going to get into heating, which is even easier than grow lights. You have 2 unit heaters that are together in your greenhouse. Your colleague has 1. Solo. Your first bank of unit heaters is going to turn on 1 degree below whatever you want to maintain. So I put 63 for day, for heating, 62 for night. They're always going to come on at 62, go off at 64 during the day. At night, 61 and 63. If you change that to 70, it's going to be 69 and 71. So all you have to do is go to target temp and change the temperatures. I have sequentially put things in the right order. Okay? If you want to dehumidify, you can set a humidity set point. Say, I want them to turn on when it's too humid and turn off when it's burned it off. And if you're cold, you don't open the door and turn the switch on, like we just did before. You come to overrides, you say turn on for the next 20 minutes. And everybody can leave, the class can end, and after 20 minutes it goes back to automatic. Nobody forgets. You have made very clear indication. I know that happens. People open those doors, they don't know what they're doing, and then they leave. So you can do everything from this touchscreen on a timed override and just let it expire. There's nothing under limits or configuration for your particular heaters. They're gas-fired unit heaters. There's not hot water. There's nothing. If those 2 heaters don't do it, we're going to bring the next one on 3 degrees below and then turn it off 1 degree below. I don't want to overshoot the greenhouse and take all that hot air out the roof vent, but I also don't want to underheat. So this heater probably won't run until you have cold nights, just because it won't be asked for.
Which one is that?
The single guy, I think that's the one in the back corner. Yeah, when I triggered him today, I know 1 and 2 was definitely one in the front corner. I think it's the one in the back right. but we can turn the switch on and even check. It's not as hot right now. So. Yeah, earlier it's dangerous to mess around with that one. So. And now we're in the cooling. It's literally like heating is very simple and not much to it. Your roof vent is going to look at the cooling set point. So it's going to open at cooling set point and close a few degrees below to let the hot air out of the roof. It's going to do the same at night. Now there's a lot of other things that you can do though with a vent. Temperature max open says it's allowed to go 100% open right now. Sometimes in the winter, this is a big feature for this new controller. We never had it in our old ones. You could say, I never want you to open more than 50% for all of January and February, even if we got a warm day. So you can drag that little bubble back to 50%. It'll never open more than its half. Fullest opening. So if it goes all the way like this now, it's only going to go half. Just kind of like an extra little protectant to make sure you don't swing back and forth between heating and cooling, and just to kind of protect it. There's also something called a loud time down here, which I can turn on and turn off. You can say, I never want the vents to open between 10 p.m. and 4 in the morning. Never. And it'll lock them out. So if you're worried about breaking in or anything, you could do that with a pad vent. It's unlikely people would climb up to the ridge vent. But you also just might want to do it just to protect plants. If you have plants real tight up, next to the vent, you might just want to say, you know what, between 3 hours after sunset and 2 hours before sunrise, let's just lock it out. That'd be okay too. And again, you can let it run 24/7. Just follow the temperature that you ask for. So there's extra protection to vents. The way the vent moves is under configuration, and that's why I came early today. So I took my phone and I timed it from full close to full open. Your ridge vent took 145 seconds to move. So when I open it, I don't just blaze it all the way open, because otherwise, think if it was like 40 and sunny outside, that would be crazy. I mean, it would be so much air exchange, it would be crazy, and it would compete with the heat back and forth. So it's going to open 20% of that. It's going to wait a minute, let the air come down to the sensor, read, and then it's going to say, yeah, I need more cooling. It's going to open another 20%, make another decision, and then it goes into standard movements, which are a little bit bigger. You can leave that all year round, okay? And you'd be fine. But if you find, Eva, when you walk in, or Mike, you walk in, and you're like, I see the roof vent is now closing and the heaters have already kicked on, that means either A, your target temperatures are too tight, or the roof vent is opening too much, okay? And then you can say, well, yeah, it's opening too much. Let's just take those down in half and make them make smaller movements. So now it's going to open for 14 seconds, because I took the top one down to 10. So it's going to shave that amount in half. So instead of making this much of a movement, it's only making like a couple of inches. So there's a number of ways we can kind of adjust those vents to help with not transferring back and forth between heating and cooling. It's so different than a building because of what the sun does for us. Okay? So for right now, I kind of have you still in summer mode, because in my opinion, we're stuck here for a while longer. We do have limits on these vents. Huge page of limits. This you don't need to worry about either. You just need to know it's there, and if a limit happens, it'll tell you on the front screen. So windward, anything under 18 miles an hour, she's fine. Between 18 and 25, we're going to close it down. So that's west. So if it's blowing into the vent, west. If it's blowing over the vent, that's leeward. So I give it a lot more wind because it's blowing over top of the greenhouse. When it rains, it's going to close to 10%. When it's cold outside, below 10, it's fully locked out. Anything more than 20, it's fine. Okay? And that's almost identical to the pad vent, except for the pad vent can handle more wind, and it doesn't matter if it rains or doesn't. Because on a hot day like today, if it was raining, I want that pad vent open for cooling the exhaust. So that's all programmed in here. So it knows exactly what to do. So you'll find that when the exhaust fan runs, again, the vent's going to come down quite a bit of ways. When the pad pump runs, it's going to close. And everything else in here is set, ready to go. Okay? That roof vent, Mike, has no maintenance. And it has safety limits, mechanical safety limits. You could run it on a drill if you had to. You could put a drill on the little nub, especially on the outside vent, if you had to. So if you lost power, your curtain systems and your vents could be run off a cordless drill in a pickle. And there's no duty cycle. So it can run 1,000 times a day, doesn't matter. And of course, if you want to override it, like right now, let's see, where's it at right now? It is 25% open, it says right now. So if I wanted to open it more, I can go to overrides, open to 50% for 5 minutes. Start and save. And the vent will ignore its regular programming, and it will go into making its move. It does have a time delay even between first and reverse. So if it's already moving one way and you tell it to go the other way, it will stop for about 6 seconds. We put some time delays in that box that's up out of the way, so we can stop it before it returns direction. So it knows what to do. So it's saying, yep, I'm manually going now open to 50%. So there's not a real good reason that you're going to tell me why you need to open the door and flip the switches, unless like these functions are not working. Okay? From here on up, this is the rest of your cooling. So your pad vent is identical except for it opens a little bit later than the roof vent. It took 208 seconds to move. Its limits are different. I gave it a little bit more wind limit. Precipitation, I said stay open at least 75%. I figure I want a little bit of an angle before it to shut off. I do not want it open if it's really cold outside, so I doubled that temperature. Again, sunny and 25 can be really nice, but we gotta be, just a little bit ginger on that thing. So that can even be shored up a little bit more, but for right now, at least give you some protection. Other than that, the whole way the vent works is identical. Same program, same overrides, so it's identical. Then we go into exhaust, and the first thing that, like I said when I was standing out there, the first exhaust to come on is number 2 and number 4. They come on as a team. They're going to come on 3 degrees over your cooling set point. Okay? So if we're at 72 right now, they're going to come on at 75. And then they're going to go off just 1 degree over.
Okay, so if I have to bomb,
If you have to what?
bug bomb,
Yep.
I usually do it when it's gonna be shady and I'll do it,
Like later in the day, do you try to do it when you
later in
leave?
the day, yeah.
Okay.
Working some
We
clothes.
have something called manual override preset. We'll set it for you.
Okay.
So you can hit one button and everything will either shut down,
Mm-hmm.
half hour, something like that,
Actually.
or a couple of hours.
Yeah, it takes longer than that. I'll need to read my.
Might be a 4 hour
Yeah.
close
blow it-
down.
blow it down,
Yeah. Okay. Yep. We can do that. Oh yeah. There's all kinds of good stuff in here to do that. So thanks for telling me. You bet. So we would turn those guys off.
Okay.
Yes. These will. They need 10% of some vent before they'll run. So if you can't figure out why they're not running. If your vents are closed because high wind, they won't run because I don't want to rip the vent off. Cold lockout, I put 35 degrees. I figure freezing temperature because you could grow strawberries for all I know. And you
Right.
might want something cool or cool crops. No precipitation, but yeah, cold lockout is a definite must. Hot lockout is only for folks that then turn those off and add air conditioning or something. So. Overrides, you could just come in here and say turn off for the next 4 hours. We have to go into every one. What we have is we have an extra button that can put everything in that block, and then you just tell it once, hey, do it, and it'll do all of it. And then you can do another one that says at 3 o'clock in the morning, turn the fans on for 2 minutes and flush it out too if you want. So, yep.
The interior ones, I just need to close the vents.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. No problem. Yep.
And then do this job.
No problem. Very common. Exhaust fan 135, they come on a degree warmer. Same settings. They need 10% vent, closed out at 35. All that's done for you. And then pad pump. So you can see it's starting to get warm in there, so obviously the sun's come back out. So we're creeping up. We jumped up a few degrees. So the pad pump's going to come on next. The pad pump is going to come on after the fans, and it does use the allowable lockup time. It's going to be allowed to run 30 minutes after the sunrise happens, whatever it is. And it's only allowed to run for an hour after sunset, which covers our nautical time. So when you get that nice push at the end of the day, usually the wind stops, it's kind of hot. I'm gonna leave the pump run for an hour after, and then it's done for the night. So the OEM manuals for all the companies that make these ask for an 8-hour dry time overnight. The only way to dry it out is to turn the water off. Okay, so that's all set and ready to go. That will be locked out if it's 40 degrees or less outside, so it won't freeze. Overrides, again, if you want to run it, you can go ahead and turn it on, just like everything else. Shade curtain. So the shade curtain's moving right now because the sun just popped up like crazy. The shade curtain's going to do a lot for you. So if your shade curtain was the whole greenhouse, these two would make a little bit more relevance to you, but I'll explain them just so you know. So daytime heat retention, I live in northeast Ohio where we get a lot of snow. So in the middle of the winter, when like we don't see the sun in sometimes January or all of February, a lot of growers will close the curtain even during the day if the light level is very low and it's very cold outside. So if it's 5 degrees outside and super cloudy, there is no reason to open that thing if you're not getting any benefit. So they leave it covered. But that's the whole greenhouse kind of shade. You don't have that, so I turned it off. At night though, we can still keep a warmer north end here. So if it's less than 60 outside, and we hit sunset and it's less than 60, it's going to cover and make sure it stays covered for the evening, just to kind of keep a little bit warmer in that area. And then at sunrise, it'll open back up. Then during the day, it's kind of like a race between cooling and shading. And this is where you're going to have to make a decision like, is it too hot and I want to cover it? Or is it too sunny and I want to cover it? Or do I want to do it for both? In this case, it says, do I want to cover for cooling or shading, and how far do I cover? So 7 degrees over my cooling set point, or 1600 light. And I noticed before I switched here, I think it said 1700 on light. It's not warm enough yet, so I grabbed this one. It covered because it's too sunny. But if you find yourself saying, like, I really wish I had more sun at this end of the greenhouse, you need to bring that one higher. And touch those 3 buttons, it'll tell you what it is outside, and just keep on going till you know, like, yep, that's where it needs to be. Okay? To uncover though, it's gonna have to go below 3 degrees over the cooling set point and below this bubble. So those are the ones you might have to kind of move around just a little bit to play that game. You could also just turn all of this off and run off cooling, or turn off all of cooling and run only based on light. You don't have to use both. And then force time is like, you don't like any of this, you just want it to cover here and uncover there. Turn it on, turn it off. That is usually used for blackout curtains for poinsettias. They usually do 6 to 6 or 8 to 10 or whatever the schedule is. So curtains do a ton of things. It's just more or less, like I always say, just start here and look what it says. It'll tell you. It says outside solar is $17.98. It's covering for shading until it drops below 900. So that's why it moved. And if that's not doing it for you, then change your light level. If you want to move it, you can. Go to overrides and you say, yep, go to a percentage and move. It does have limits. It tries to help you, like if it snows really hard outside for 30 minutes, it's going to uncover to heat the greenhouse to melt the snow off the roof, because you'll get a lot of buildup. So we'll get rid of it. That could be ice. And then when it does uncover, especially in the winter, we uncover kind of slow, because if the temperature drops and comes down real quick, like if that attic space is very cold and it comes down, we don't want it to damage any crop below it. Again, your house is different because you're only a half shade, so that won't be as relevant. I don't see you having these big temperature changes between high and low, but that's just kind of there for that protector. So again, that's just stuff we've had for years. Just a lot more things we can do with it now. So, and that curtain took 420 seconds to move. So, took a good amount of time. And status is under any piece of equipment. You can kind of just see what it's doing outside. You can see, like, man, the light really jumped up. Outside temperature really jumped up. So it's making the interior temperature jump up. But now that it covered, this actually came down a full degree. So it does save you a lot of cooling too. You're going to find it'll save you a lot of cooling. So. All right. I know this other greenhouse is not yours, but I want you to at least have an idea of what's going on in Zone 2. Zone 2 is a lot less equipment, as you can see. I gave your colleague the same temperatures at least to start. 1 unit heater, a vent. There's no pad vent, there's no lower vent, no side vent, no lower vent. The blower in low speed also opens the little louvers on the inside. So when it blows air in, it opens the little louver on the inside. So if it's pushing air in the greenhouse, it has to go out, right? It's got to fill that space. So the roof vent is going to be open to let the air out. So it's going to go low cooler, high speed on the fan, pad pump, and the same settings for the shade curtain, just to start, okay? That's all the equipment that is in there. And the only real kind of difference is your fans, suck air out. This is blowing air in, especially cooling tubes blowing air in. They do have lockouts, so I don't want that blower to run if it's cold outside. It does have to have a vent open for there's where for the air to go. The pump, I locked out, let's see, actually, you know what, I'll give him the same time, so the pump can run until an hour after sunset. What did I give it for a temperature? 45 degrees, same as yours. So again, we don't have any problem with it. Let's save there. And a shade curtain, same settings all the way across the board. Because again, I didn't know, right? I didn't know what else to give him.
This is different than mine.
His is different in the sense that I'm pushing air into the greenhouse, air conditioning, instead of sucking it out.
Yeah.
But the
shade.
physical material is the same.
Okay.
Yeah, is identical. So, and it's right now it's in there running. And if I thought it was I have it off somewhere, I hear whistling. I wouldn't have enough air for the air of the vent open for the air to leave. I don't hear that. I think I have the pressure right. So I think everything's hunky dory and ready to go. What he could do is just if you wanted to, I'm assuming he has a desk and a computer,
Yes.
things like that. Okay. So obviously he could just take the same file, you put it on your H drive, just have him load it on his own computer, and he can start messing around. He and I could do a Zoom meeting, Teams meeting, share screen, whatever, and I could run through his greenhouse and how to set it and things like that. But for right now, hell, he could move in and
Yeah.
be hunky dory too,
Yeah.
But he's going to probably want to make changes and not know, is my guess.
Yeah.
So how quickly is he going to move in?
I have no idea.
Okay. Okay.
I don't know. He left right after school. I don't know.
Okay. All right. Well, I would just tell him again, I'm happy to kind of give him a little bit of a tutorial if he needs some help, but
Okay.
Otherwise his greenhouse is ready to rock too. Yep. So he's all set. You can tell he doesn't have lights, he doesn't have more heaters, he doesn't
Yeah.
have the HAF fans.
He just needs
His is
to
a
be
lot easier.
Reasonable temperature.
It is. Yeah, I did the same. So I did 6372 day, just like you, 6278 night. Gotta give him something to get going. This little advanced button, the way I did it is I set your greenhouse. I clicked on advanced. I clicked on the little copy button down here, and I copied it to his zones.
Okay.
I literally just copied it from one to next. Yeah, I made it real easy. So anything that's orange, I'm gonna go back into your greenhouse. Anything that's orange, like these little gears that are orange, or if I went into the unit heater and I see this little orange,
Mhm.
I could usually do something more. So I could graph the equipment, I could copy from one zone to the next, I could get to our advanced menu, I could reset. So it's always just a little bit more advanced, stuff you wouldn't use every day. For your purpose in your greenhouse, this gear up here is very relevant. So the first thing I want to show you is that you could override a lot of things at once. So right now, I could override your exhaust fans, pad pump, HAF fans. They're all on, so I'm going to turn them off for 1 minute. So all of them just went off 1 minute, bam. No switches, no individual piece of equipment doing it, bulk over it. Real quick, I'm in the greenhouse, I'm teaching, it's loud, turn all this stuff off for 2 minutes so I can talk, and then let it go back on. Okay, that's bulk over it. Bug bombs. Back to the little gear. Manual override preset. So you need how long you're gonna keep it off? 4 hours?
Yeah. And I usually do that later in the day. So
Later in the day. Yep. Right before you leave? Or do you try
sometimes
to-
later? It just depends.
Okay. Do you go home and come back, or?
I might have to with this house. With the other one, it was shady enough. Trees and stuff
Okay,
Once it
okay.
was a certain time, it was gonna be in the shade and it wasn't gonna overheat.
Can you VPN into this from home? No, okay. So this
But I
would
haven't
be,
set them anyway, so,
okay, all right. Oh, you physically have to do
Yeah.
something. Oh, so you have to come, okay, I'm like, otherwise you could do this from home.
yeah.
Okay, so bug bomb, 4 hours. So what, you're gonna turn off exhaust fans.
Mhm.
I need to add one. You're gonna turn those off. We're gonna turn those off. HAF fans, right? The basket fans?
That doesn't matter, cause it's not sucking it out, so.
No, it's gonna blow it around though. Is that gonna be a problem?
Yeah, if I've got it in one spot, I'm gonna need it probably.
Okay, let's turn them off. HAF, turn them off. PEP pump's not gonna make any difference because that has nothing to do with airflow. Do the vents have to come closed?
Yeah.
Might as well turn it all off. So let's do it. Back vent, target 0%. Roof vent, target 0%. Okay, so now I hit save. So to get there, you're gonna click on your zone. This looks just like a little derailleur in a bicycle.
Mhm.
Over here. Manual override preset. Your bug bomb, you're gonna deploy it. So you hit this little guy right here.
Mhm.
And it's gonna say, it's gonna check. Do you really wanna do it for 4 hours? You're gonna be like, nope, I wanna do it for 1 minute right now. You can do seconds even, and hit apply.
I'm gonna check it, so
Yep.
I know it's doing what.
You got it. So then, I like to come here and see it's already counting down. So, closed, closing, off, off, off. It's already on top of it. And yeah, it would be probably kind of nice. You're messing with your little kit. Things are coming down. You're setting it up. You set it. You walk out the door. You leave. When it's done, it just goes back to automatic. If automatic says it's raining like hell, it's not hot outside, nothing will come back on. So what you could do is we could set up a schedule, a true schedule, and you could say at 1 o'clock in the morning, I want the pad vent to open 15% and I want exhaust fan 2 and 4 to come on just for 5 minutes and suck everything out. If you want to. If you don't need to, then don't.
Usually doesn't.
Okay, doesn't matter. Because a lot of times people call that a purge.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Well, and I don't do it when the kids are gonna be on campus for at least 24 hours.
Okay, all right. Even if you're for your own safety, if you ever want to do it. So now we're back to automatic, because I can see things are done, the manual thing's done. So there's an advanced menu I'm going to go into, and that's where we can set up a schedule. You can say, yeah, I'm going to do that right now, or I'm going to set it all up, and maybe I try to do this on Fridays, because school's not in, and you can just the next day deploy it, or set it off on Thursday night, and then Friday, literally at 2 a.m. Friday, it'll just purge it out. So there's a lot of options for you to do this, okay? So, preset, you have to somehow get to the controller. I mean, we do have an app. You could use that here on campus, but when you go home, that's called a cloud account. If you VPN'd in, you're paying for that. If you use our cloud account, you'd be paying my service, right, to do this. But if you have a protocol doing it now, this is how I would do it. So it's ready to go. So again, you come to your gear, manual override preset, grab your bug bomb, deploy, check your hours, hit apply, and away she goes. And you're done, okay? The other things in this gear that might be helpful to you, I like to manage zone profiles. So you can say, we'll just set one up. We'll say this was training day. Wadsworth Controls. Oops, spell my name right. Okay, so this is like day 1, right? This is starter day 1. So let's say you make all kinds of changes to your settings, and you're like, I'm really in left field. You could come back here and say, hey, let's go back to that day Amanda was here and deploy that. You could save spring settings, summer settings, Christmas vacation settings. You could save a bunch of profiles, and then you could just deploy them. So that's kind of fun, and makes life a little bit easier. You can go in there, go back to that gear. You can graph all your zone data. Now I did do a clean, fresh wipe today to make sure things look nice, because always there's like little wonky stuff going on all over. So you're only gonna have a couple hours, but we'll let this graph. I can tell you what's been going on in the greenhouse the last couple hours. So since I did that reset, I can see the humidity in the greenhouse, I can see the temperature set points, what it is, the vents, what they've been doing. Oh, here, I'll kick on the other equipment. You'll see these bars come across the screen. It'll show you what they've been up to. There we go. So heaters have not been running because they have no gray bars. Pad pump was running, exhaust running, HAF we're running in here. So that's just a nice overview of what's going on. Of course, tomorrow it'll fill the whole screen. Next day you get more. It'll kind of store till the end of time. You'll have 2 years before it'll tell you your history's full. Okay, you're gonna be there forever. You don't have enough stuff again. It'll be good forever. You can download it. You can be like, hey, let's look at all our data from last year. Okay, this is our spring growing season. And you can download all this data and say, yeah, throw that on my H drive, throw it on my desktop, wherever I want it. And you can look and see how everything did from month to month, year to year. So that's the download button. You can trash can, start over. Go to your key and say, I want to look at, what's your compadre's name that's going to have the second zone?
Joe.
Joe. So let's look at your temperature versus Joe's temperature. And let's make yours that color with a dotted line and put it on the screen. Grab that little target and I'll be damned. You guys are kind of tracking along. Yours is a little bit warmer than his was. And then you kind of switched and then his got cooler. Or no, yours got cooler, my bad. He's red. So again, you can do whatever you want. You can't damage anything with graphs. You could even save them and say, Z1 versus Z2 and always come back to it and say, you know what, I want that to export for us once a week and I want to do that at noon on Fridays. So there's lots of things to do with graphs. You can graph the traits, your equipment, your set points, all your sensors, your weather station. So you can come in and graph anything you want. So you just click on things and you can graph all this stuff and it will tell you what is going on out there. Double click around, put that bullseye on here. It'll show you that little blip of rain right there. It's going to show you what the wind's been up to, temperature. So, graphing is fun. It's great for kids. Great to kind of learn what's going on, especially when things look really great. You can download and say, look at this is what we did. Let's replicate that. Or hey, we're not doing so great. Maybe we need to make adjustments. It's really good for us. Things aren't going right. We can see things. So, okay? So graphing is super fun. The little crop guy will let you drag things around. So if you want to center things, you can move, go forward or backwards, move things around. If you hold your left mouse button down by the date, it will let you look at multiple days behind that. But like I said today, I did clean it out so you started fresh because there was all kinds of stuff on there. Didn't make a lot of sense. When the power goes off, it comes on, you see all these gaps. It's kind of yucky. And then if you get yourself lost, just hit the trash can and start over. And the little question mark will even tell you how to do stuff. It's really easy. Get out of there, go back. You can click up top and it'll go to graph. You can start at the main screen, click on weather, and it goes to graph. Lots of ways to get there. Okay? Lots of ways to get there. This three little guy up here, though, that I keep clicking on, that is your menu. Okay? So don't worry about irrigation queue, you don't have. Equipment log. If Mike sees that there's a problem with equipment, you can come in here and kind of isolate, okay, what piece of equipment is not working, and when was it supposed to be working according to your program? Let's look at the last day of what's been running and things. And again, this is probably empty because I wiped it out. But you could start to kind of get an idea of, it'll say this was on for this amount of time, this was off for this amount of time. So if you start to have trouble, sometimes it's helpful for us to see what's been going on, because we can also download that data. The other stuff up here is advanced menu and connections. Connections is just going to say the IP address. The advanced menu is huge. So, connection sphere, that's just the name of the software. You won't see that out at the controller. Controller, you have one. If you had multiple, you can see them all listed in here. Right now, you have one touchscreen. So it's just going to say one controller and what your IP address is. Super cool. Sensors and equipment. So this is fairly critical. So the IOs, I showed you in the big panel, they always should say active. If they're not, you know there's gonna be a problem because stuff ain't gonna run. First place to look. That was the last time I turned the power off, and I did it when I popped the battery out. Sensors I calibrated, but you can calibrate them by hitting the pencil. If you wanted to recalibrate them or for any reason to see what's going on, but those are your sensors. Sunlight sensor, I will point out to you where it is so you know where it is. Every once in a while, I just want you to wipe the dust off. And if the equipment is running or not, and the name of the equipment, you can always change. Like if you don't like what we called something, you can change it. That's the pencil. But it is really critical that these always say active. So if something's not right, we'll know right away. And it'll say like disconnected and for how long. Sensor pools. A daily light integral is taking two sensors, the weather station and interior light meter, and bringing them together and taking the total light for the day. You can make your light say, I want 20 moles of light today, and then turn off. Well, we'd be almost to that point. So you don't extend grow lights for no reason. Vapor pressure deficit people use for irrigation trigger, and you don't have that, so don't worry about it. But that we always build it in. Equipment groups is when I have to bring multiple things together. So like if we have floor heat, I'd have to turn on a boiler pump, maybe a VFD, a valve. I would make up an equipment group, something I couldn't really do very well in my old controls. I could do it very well there. Schedule EVA, this is where we could do the purge. We could say, you know, I want to purge the greenhouse. I want to enable it. I want to do it on a Friday, and I want to do it at 12:15 to 12:30, and I want to cycle some equipment on, 2 minutes on, 0 minutes off, and do that multiple times in between 12:15 and 12:30 in the morning. And I could like burst the fans on to suck things out. That would be scary. I'm not going to set one up because you said you don't need it, but we could do it. And then influence is you want to write custom code. It's not common, but people do want things I don't have in my core program. Again, length purposes, could never do this with our other controller. You got what we sold you. Now, there's a lot of things we can do. We can say like, turn the grow lights on if the curtain is covered more than 80%. Turn the grow lights off if the curtain is uncovered less than 30%. You know, like I can like trigger and attach all kinds of things together. Turn the exhaust fan off if it's raining. You know, like just like wild things. You name it, I could probably do it. Just gives us more ability to do things with the equipment that a core greenhouse user may not use. Fancy people or fancy sensors or something. I can even write certain alarms using it. It's just available to you. Zone management lists all the stuff in your zones, and it lets me change names. So are you sure you want to call your zone 1, or would you like something better?
You could just call it retail ag.
And Joe's greenhouse?
Natural resources, but you can,
You
NR,
said NRA?
NR's fine.
Yep, just like that. Oh yeah, NRA. National Rifle Association, you like? I haven't been hunting in a while, but I know what that is. Periods are day and night. Do you ever do diff in the spring? Will you ever do diff or too much in the greenhouse to do it?
I've never had that kind of that capability, so.
Okay.
Probably not if I do anything.
If you do, yeah, just call me in the spring and say, hey, I want to do some spring diff, and we'll add another period in and set it up for you. Real easy, or if he wants to do it. The weather station, it just tells me what you want to see on the front screen, and then we have like a million other sensors these days. We can even read things in soil now and all kinds of fun stuff, so that's just extras. So now, we go back, retail ag and Anna, you got it. Security. Change log is going to show you all the changes I've just made, and my name is admin. Do you want security set up so when you walk up to the controller, you type in a code? Do you want a key and leave it at the key? Do you want none of it?
I don't know that there's a reason to
No?
Sure.
Okay.
Because I'm not gonna do anything unless you're
No.
there.
And you could lock it
I'm
with the
gonna lock
key.
it.
Yeah, and, you know, so you're gonna be tracking your own changes.
Yeah.
And or changes that, or things that I might do when you know I'm doing it anyway,
Yeah.
trying to
Okay.
figure something out, so
If you guys ever wanna do it, you can. It's available now. It's been in like our job specification request for years. We always thought it was really good to have when you, especially in, I guess, more research environments where we have like 15 people at one
Right, when you
controller.
have multiple people doing things, you would wanna track, so you know
Right.
who to ask, why did you change this?
That's right, or I can give people like read-only access, because they might have a weekend water, they don't want them to make programming changes.
Sure.
If you ever wanna do it, it's available, you go in, the system settings, this looks identical to my iPhone anyways. And you go down here to security, you say, yep, we're gonna have multiple users, it's gonna make you enter a passcode. One person has to use the admin, everybody else plugs in their own name, you plug in your own 4 to 6 digit, numbered passcode, and every time you walk up, you just plug your code, like your phone, right? Just like our phones do. So if you ever want to do it, it's in the manual, or you can call me and I can show you how to do it. That's no problem. But that's under system settings, and then the change log. There'll be a new person that comes up and it says user management, like a new icon, and then it would have our names in there. And then of course you say, yeah, you can have all the access you want. That person is read only. A general greenhouse user, that means they can only see what's going on. You can even, like I was at Michigan State last week, she wanted one researcher to see one zone out of the 24 she has. Okay, I'm like, whatever you want, sister, you know? But she has 100 people to deal with. So, that made sense. If you ever want it, it's there. System settings is also like where your guy Ted gave me all this gobbledygook today, the DHCP, all that to enter, so that is there. There's a screensaver if you want it to pop up. I disabled it. If you ever want to go, I go to Canada tomorrow. We're probably all going to go to Celsius. Some database stuff, just general stuff in there. Network time, it's tracking network time. So sunrise, sunset, daylight savings time, it'll follow all that fun good. System maintenance is like the big stuff. So today I clicked on check for updates. We did have an update. It came out last Monday. We do them usually every 3 months. We did the update last Monday, made it available. We are not emailing people till next week. We always let it run for like 2 weeks, do a couple of beta sites, make sure everybody's cool, and then we deploy it out to everybody. So, yeah, you'll get an email with that information, you bet. If you ever want to check, you can just always just touch the click for updates buttons here or there, and it'll tell you if there's one available. Bulk unit change, reset equipment metrics, like this is kind of a lot of techie stuff. The user manual's right here. I want to reboot the controller, I want to power it down. I showed Jordan how to power it down. There's a button on the back, he can also do it from right here. So when he puts that battery back in, I can look at the state of the battery, which is bad right now because it's not there. And I can go into a recovery utility. Like if the controller's something wrong with the touchscreen, we have back-end stuff. Some of the guys will tell you, like the tech guys will be like, go here, I need you to do this, follow these instructions. So yeah, it's pretty basic. System info, I took Ted here this morning for the MAC address, the IP address. He wanted to see all this stuff. What else is back here? Memory storage, gobbledygook, how quick it's talking to the IOs. I mean, again, a lot of this stuff is like my world. Snapshots is really important. So I always do a backup before I do an update just to make sure things don't go poorly. I just did that on my phone yesterday. So like what I would do is say create new snapshot. You would say like, hey, Amanda from WCS post training, saving settings. You know, just something, right? I'm not gonna save anything else, I don't need the history, but I can save it. And then I want it off that touchscreen. I want it somewhere else, so I'm gonna put it in your folder here. So I'm gonna say export, I want that one, choose a destination, and I'll go back to that H drive where the greenhouse folder is right there, and plop it right in there. And now we have a backup on this PC, so if that had an issue, you always have a known good backup. Yeah, it's just a good idea to do it every time we have an update, do one, or you do it whenever they
I
leave.
agree.
Just do it.
Or if you make a bunch of programs.
Make a bunch of programming changes. So my poor friend Lincoln in the Northeast just did that, and he didn't get it off the controller. They shut down the controller for like 2 days to like install this stuff, and they did some wiring book and didn't get it back up right. So they got it back up, but all his settings were like gobbledygook. So he has like what we plugged in February. So he was going to spend the afternoon doing a lot of programming. That sucks. Don't do that. Get it either the thumb. There's if you open the screen and look underneath, there's a thumb drive port. Put it on the thumb drive, or get it on another computer. It's now on the H drive. Like,
If it's on your H drive,
I
it's
took
forever.
one on my thumb drive just in case things went south this afternoon. Like I just always take settings,
Back up twice.
back it
save
up. I know
$3,000.
I'm a huge fan of backup.
Yeah.
Release notes. These are all the fun things we did. 09 was a massive release. The .10 wasn't that big. You went from 07 to 10 today. You did a big jump. And then debug is really gobbledygook, and somebody at the office will ask you for that crap because I don't know what any of that means. That is programming. That is totally programming. But all this stuff is in the advanced menu, and really the big bulk of it is under system maintenance. Okay? All this other stuff back here, like if you add an alarm system, I can help you change these. Like, when do you want the alarms to go off? What do you want it to go off for? Everything's kind of preset for you and ready to go for alarms. You just kind of need to say, like, make it happen. Right now, if you had a problem in your zone, like let's say Mike said, you lose the heat. Like, let's say the heaters are off or you don't have gas. Okay, so I put you 25 degrees over your cooling set point. I'm going to show you what an alarm looks like.
Yeah, I don't know what we're gonna do.
Yeah, see, like, right, so I set it into alarm. I said, okay, 1 degree over my cooling set point, go off. Well, I'm 2 degrees over. So it's going off. It's blinking on the screen. It says right here, I'm going to activate in 49 seconds. Activate what? Nothing, because there's nothing. So what it will do is, if this happened, if we all weren't here, it's going to do this. It's going to flash on the screen. If you download our phone app, it's going to do the same thing. If you have the app open, it's going to flash on the screen. It's identical to this little software. And in just shy of like 30 seconds, this is going to take over the whole screen, and it's going to bring up something you have to take action. You have to cancel or snooze. Snooze means, I'm going to tell you again, just
Yeah.
like our phones do if you snooze your alarm. Cancel means I'm here to rescue the problem. I'm going to make the equipment change, I'm going to fix the equipment, I'm going to make a setting change, I'm going to do something about it. So it does it for temperature. I widened out humidity as far as we can because I live in your world, it's humid or it's not. So there it is. It won't do it for CO2 because you don't have a CO2 sensor. I can do CO, I can do lots of things like that, but I turn that off. But like here now, I can't even change the program. I have to do something. So I'm going to hit cancel because I'm going to fix the problem. But that's what an alarm will do. It'll close a contact point, aka trigger something, trigger a device. You just don't have a device right now. Okay? So I'm going to cancel.
You're gonna do the app so that you'll see.
The app is free. I mean, like if you want to download it on your phone, as long as you're probably on the same subnet mask as the controller, you should be able to see the heating.
What's that?
If you're on campus.
If you're on campus. So, do you have an iPhone or an Android?
iPhone.
Okay, so go to your iPhone store. And are you, first off, before you do that, are you on Miami Valley's wireless network?
Oh,
Because you're gonna have to be on the.
no. Okay.
You would have to be if your phone works because you can't get out here.
I know.
Okay,
Yeah, I am now.
okay. And Jordan, that's probably good enough for
So
taping. So
turn
you
it
don't-
off. The Wi-Fi off.
You're